Hello and welcome to the first episode of Lacing the Skates, a Hershey Bears podcast. I'll be your host for the festivities, Andy, and with me is my co-host, Joey. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing all right, sir.
Yeah, so we've got a lot to cover. We'll kind of dive into this. We're going to give you a weekly 30-minute podcast talking about the Hershey Bears and all things hockey.
Yeah.
So we're going to start kind of with a 3-segment philosophy. The first segment's going to be the week that was. Then we'll have a second segment, the week ahead. And the third one's kind of around hockey. Yeah. And this has kind of been a crazy week. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what you think, Joe.
Yeah, this has been a crazy week, with Evgeny Kuznetsov coming to Hershey, and then the news we just got a couple minutes ago. It's insane to think about.
Yeah, I mean, it is pretty crazy to think about. So let's take a look at the week that was. Saturday, 1-0 loss to Utica. They had 27 shots, not a ton of good chances. Hunter Shepard allows the only goal at about the midway point of the third period. He didn't have a really good chance of stopping it. And then Sunday, 1-0 shootout loss to Lehigh Valley. Stevenson had 18 saves in what is recorded as a shutout, his franchise-tying 7th shutout this season. But it was the second consecutive game the offense was held off the board, 0 for 6 on the power play. Kind of talk about those two games, what you saw from the team, what you didn't like from the team.
Well, like you said, the home game against Utica, that was 1-0 win. And that whole game, the puck control was on their side. They were passing perfectly, but they just couldn't get a shot on the net. Every time they had an open shot, it wouldn't go in the back of the net. And a game like that, so close to the playoffs, you're wondering, well, if we get a win, how will it affect us? So that doesn't matter. You're going to 2 games thinking about what if, and sometimes that's not the thing you want to do. But like you said, they had shots open that game, and they just couldn't get it back in the net.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they had 2 posts. One, that power play at the end of the second period, and another one, I think Snively rung it off the post at our opposite end in the third period. So a little bit of bad luck in that one. I think they hit 2 posts again in Lehigh Valley. So the shots were there, the puck luck wasn't.
No.
But after that, it was kind of chaos. We found out on Saturday that Evgeny Kuznetsov was cleared to return to practice by the NHLPA after he was released from the player assistance program.
Yeah.
Then later that afternoon, we found out he was put on waivers with the expectation he would be sent to Hershey. And then speculation began. On Sunday, he cleared waivers and then was assigned to Hershey. On Monday, it was said that he's expected to be at practice on Tuesday. Even more speculation. Then Tuesday came. Not only was he at practice, but he was a full participant. And he looked happy too. So, what was going through your mind at that time?
Well, what was going through my mind at that time is wow, this is a good thing for the Bears. Last year's win, the Calder Cup, Game 7, I have faith that they can be two-peater. They're easily a two-peater just because they have the talent. But, we were there to practice. Evgeny, he looked in high spirits.
Yeah.
Well, we were talking about that earlier, that he might be playing tonight.
Yeah, and that kind of keeps it going. So I said, so what's next? Surely he won't travel to Charlotte.
No.
Wednesday morning, pictures from the Bears on social media. He was on the trip.
Yeah.
Smiling again. And then speculation was, is he playing tonight? Yesterday, he's in a white jersey practicing on the first line next to Frank and Vecchione. Then, literally, maybe, as I'm going to pick you up, I see a tweet that he's been traded to Carolina. They got back a 3rd rounder in 2025. And as of recording this, the Capitals have 20 picks in the next 2 years. People are speculating, are they going to use that to turn it around and go get a player this summer? Who knows? They've made 3 deadline deals already, deadline week deals, and have only gotten draft picks.
Yeah.
So And then there's the rumor that he could still play for Hershey this weekend, and that's
2 games back to back.
That's the wild part about this, and that's because Carolina doesn't have an AHL affiliate.
No, they don't.
And we'll touch on that a little bit more because I have some much more interesting stuff on that. But, and then while all this is happening, Pittsburgh puts Matthew Phillips back on waivers and he gets reclaimed by Washington. Then the Caps send him to Hershey.
Yeah.
There was an expectation kind of in Bears country this year that we would see Phillips. Last season, he scored 36 goals and was first team All-AHL. The season before, he had 31 goals. Top-tier AHL talent.
Yes.
And during all this time, the Caps reassigned Pierre Dubé back to Hershey. So there was a buzz around Hershey this week. And surprisingly, it wasn't focused around being shut out back-to-back games this past weekend. So,
And the thing about that is they only allowed 1 goal.
Not even. Yeah, 1 goal. 1 goal, and then they lost in a shootout.
Yeah.
And I know we talked about this. I said, if you had told me going into the weekend that they would allow 1 goal, I'd say they probably got at least 3 points out of the weekend, if not 4, and you only came away with 1 point.
Yeah.
That's absolutely insane.
The defense, the defense was on point to both the games. I mean, we went to Lehigh Valley. That was good atmosphere. But the offense wasn't just there.
Yeah, no puck luck.
No, and it happens. I mean, your offense sometimes won't work, but when your offense does work, it's magical when you see it.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of even can go back to the Calder Cup Finals last year. They're out there in the desert and no goals in the first 2 games. They come home and pick up 3 one-goal games, including 2 in overtime. Then they go back out to California, get beat. Didn't look good. Then all of a sudden and it looked bad in Game 7, down 2-0.
Yep.
There's a breakaway. Shepard stops it. And then it turned around. I think from that point on, he made 25 straight saves to end the game and win it. So those things happen. There's swings of luck in hockey, not just in the AHL. And this was kind of a weekend where puck luck wasn't on their side, But the good thing, and, we've talked about this, is that their goaltending and their team defense is still top notch. It's going to win them games.
Yeah. There's no doubt.
So let's also take a look at the moves that Washington made this week because it has an effect on the Bears.
It does.
They traded Sonny Milano and Joel Edmondson, and the return was just draft picks.
They traded Sonny.
Yeah, that trade happened earlier in the week. They also did not place Mike Scarbosa on waivers yesterday, which means Scarbs is an NHL player the rest of the way, and Hershey will not have its leading point scorer for a playoff run.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of people upset about that, and I am too, but I also think that's okay because if we look back to last year, they went on the Calder Cup run and won it last year with Scarbs hurt for most of the run as well. So
that shows a lot.
It is what it is. I also expect there to be some paper transactions today for playoff eligibility, mostly with Shepard, Miro, and LaPierre. They're all currently right now with Washington, but I fully expect them to have, let's assign them to Hershey right at 2:58 or whatever the time is, and then they'll be back up because right now they're needed in the NHL, which I get.
The Capitals aren't healthy.
Yeah, they're not. Well, and they traded a lot of people, too.
They did, yeah.
They've traded 2 NHLers this week and sent a guy back down. They have a few guys that are starting to get more healthy, but, so, what a week it was. What are some of your thoughts on what transpired this week?
It's just mixed thoughts, I mean, if you look at it, like you said, a lot of... They're trading a lot of their players, that Washington is, and... we're going to have 3 of them, but Scarbosa, with him up in Washington, that's, like you said, he's a big score leader. But like you said, last year we won with him hurt. And Hershey can come back from a loss. They can. We've seen it happen. That's just who they are. And, it's a lot... With the trades that happened this week, it's crazy. But there's a lot of mixed thoughts that I have that what if we don't do good? What if we don't make it there? But like I said, the Hershey Bears are, even with the NHL players on the team, they're still good.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So we're going to take a short break, and we'll be back with segment 2. All right, we're back with segment 2, and we're going to take a look at the week ahead. So the Bears have a back-to-back in Charlotte tonight and tomorrow. Their magic number sits at just 6, as they have 86 points, and Springfield can max at 91. Thunderbirds have Bridgeport tonight and Toronto tomorrow before traveling to Providence. It's also worth noting Lehigh Valley, they can max at 93, and they have home and aways tonight and tomorrow with Wilkes-Barre, and then they play at Bridgeport on Sunday. So theoretically, Hershey could clinch a playoff spot as early as tomorrow, over a month before the playoffs even begin.
Yeah,
that's wild to think about.
Looking at the T-Bird schedule, Bridgeport tonight. Now, are they home or away?
They're home.
They're home.
Yep, they're home tonight and tomorrow.
The T-Birds, their home advantage is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
The Bridgeport, they can scoop a win tonight, just because Bridgeport, where they're at, they're not likely a team to win. But the T-Birds have a really tough game tomorrow because Toronto was tough.
Toronto can score. Toronto can score. That's the thing.
Yes, they can. And 2 games tonight for the Bears, back-to-back in Charlotte. Charlotte is really good on offense.
Yeah.
And the defense is what we need if we want to get these 2 back-to-back wins.
Yeah, I also think it's interesting. The situation with Charlotte is kind of funny.
Mm-hmm.
The last time the Bears traveled here was early in December, and after they got down to Charlotte, the Caps had a goalie illness, and Shepard was called in. The difference with that, though, is he got called to Vegas for that one, and literally had to get on a flight in the morning, show up in Vegas that night. He got called up again, and here comes Gibson to back up. So during that weekend, Stevenson played both games, the Friday and Saturday, and it's kind of really what started his incredible run and play this year. Do you think we see that again this weekend, or do we think Gibson gets in for one of those games?
Gibson might get in one of the games.
I think it depends what happens tonight.
It all depends. If Stevenson can't perform tonight like he usually does, I think Gibson will be in the game tomorrow.
I don't think it's necessarily that. I think it's more in if they get a win tonight and let's say Springfield or Lehigh Valley lose. I think they just give Gibson the game tomorrow.
They probably will.
Granted, I don't think it matters at all what those other teams do right now. I just think if Stevenson gets the win, they're like, you know what? Let's give him the rest. And I just think in general they do. But I think it more hinges on that. If he has a bad showing tonight, I could see him give him the net back again tomorrow to let him regain confidence. It's really interesting because, again, there was the report with the Kuznetsov trade, and this is reported by Tony Androktis from AHL Insider. He said it's possible that Kuznetsov gets a conditioning game in the AHL this weekend if Carolina doesn't place him on the NHL roster today. I think that is rather interesting, and I do not know the rules on this because today is kind of roster deadlines for AHL playoffs and everything. Could he even play for the Bears despite being a member of Carolina? It's just really interesting to think about. Is he in the lineup tonight? Is he in tomorrow? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Especially because there isn't any information of whether or not he's cleared from the player assistance program. The post-care part of it. It's just interesting. There's also been... It's also been reported that Phillips is not with the team. He didn't travel down because, till he got reclaimed off of waivers. It was Wednesday afternoon. The team was already gone. He was in Pittsburgh. Washington was on their way there, and they played there last night. There's also the rumor of him potentially rejoining Washington after the trade deadline today. Basically as we're going to keep his playoff eligibility with Hershey, but then he's going to fill the roster space basically immediately after. And there's even the rumors, and actually Spencer Carberry spoke about this, the Milano opening in the lineup could be filled by a rotation of Ethan Frank, Miro, Dubé, and Phillips for the rest of the year. So I think some of that's interesting.
For the Capitals?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you got any lineup guesses for tonight? Do we kind of look at the same lineup from last weekend with the inserting of Ethan Frank, Riley Sutter, Lucas Johansson? Do we think they're back in tonight or?
Well, I think so. Ethan Frank is pretty good. Skating wise, he's fast. He can get to the puck easily. Sometimes he can get to the puck fast if there's if it needs be. But Ethan Frank, not only is he a good skater, but he can shoot. Mm-hmm. You put him on the line with Sutter. Sutter's pretty good. But
Sutter's going to play on the fourth line where he's always been.
Yeah, he's always on the fourth line. But I don't really know what the line that's going to be started tonight. If I'm guessing, they're probably going to put Frank in
probably first. Back with Vecchione and probably Huntington on the first line again.
Yeah, Jimmy, yeah.
And that's interesting. The weird thing is I have not seen, at this point, any recalls, which means they have 18 healthy forwards plus Osipov.
Yeah.
Which tells me that unless there's a recall, Sutter and Frank are going to be in, unless one of them can't go and then Osipov slots in. But right now, because they sent MP and O'Neill back down to South Carolina this week, which makes sense they were getting healthy, and Kuznetsov being there. Now I honestly have no idea. The Kuznetsov trade just threw everything off this morning.
I think it's a good opportunity for the Bears to look at what they have.
Right, yeah. And know that you're going to have, Miro. I forgot about Dubé even slotting back in. Completely forgot about him. I think what we were seeing with line rushes this week is you kind of had Dubé on that third line with, I think it was Trinyaev and Rybinski, which I really like that trio in there. Bunch of young, hungry players.
That trio can be dangerous sometimes, too.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I'm really intrigued by what they throw out there tonight. I'm intrigued. I'm going to really be curious on following the Kuznetsov story the rest of the day.
Tonight, they need to focus more on shooting when they have a chance.
Right. Yeah, I think that's going to make a big difference for them.
That's how. Charlotte is always a tough match against the Bears. But if the Bears want to win tonight and tomorrow, they need to take chances when they have the chance to shoot.
Yeah.
Puck control is one thing. The Bears are really going on the puck control. And we've seen that. Everybody's seen that at the games. Mm-hmm. They can control the puck really well. It's just whenever there's an open lane that they don't take the shot. And I think they need to start doing that tonight and tomorrow.
Right. Yeah, we're going to really find out what they're going to have at their disposal for next week, kind of today once the trade deadline passes. What paper transactions are going to be done, what recalls are going to be done, because there's still roster juggling to be done. And this is a crazy time for hockey. But we're going to take a short break, and then we'll be back with our final segment, Around the Hockey World. And we're back with Lacing the Skates, a Hershey Bears podcast, and our final segment is Around Hockey. So, we obviously had several deals go down. The most interesting one, and that impacts the AHL, was the Gensel deal, Jake Gensel deal, which was done last night. It was kind of finalized after the Penguins Capitals game. So here's the details. Carolina gets Jake Gensel and Ty Smith. Pittsburgh gets Michael Bunting, Vasily Ponomarev, Vili Koivunen, these are hockey names. They're all European. Cruz Lucius, which quite frankly is a fantastic name.
Oh, yeah.
A conditional first and a conditional fifth. So the conditional first is if Carolina makes the Stanley Cup Finals, it's a first. If not, it's Philadelphia's second, I believe it is. And the conditional fifth is winning the Stanley Cup. I forget what it changes to if they don't, but, whatever. So the interesting part in all of this is that Carolina does not have an AHL affiliate.
No.
It's the first time in approximately 30 years this has happened. So they were affiliated with the Chicago Wolves last year, but Chicago decided to go independent this year, which has created some odd situations. Most of Carolina's closer to NHL-ready prospects were loaned to other AHL teams, and some of the younger players went to the ECHL's Norfolk Admirals, as Carolina also doesn't have an ECHL affiliate. Very interesting situation. But they kind of have a working agreement with Norfolk, who's, I think I saw they're the affiliate of Winnipeg.
Yes, I think so.
So expanding on this, there was a report on Twitter X yesterday from Tony Androktis, which I referenced him earlier, from AHL Insider, that Carolina is attempting to purchase an AHL expansion franchise, and rumors are that they have looked into Baltimore as a location, and as crazy as it is, some of the people that are attempting to help make this happen are Kevin Durant and Pharrell Williams.
No way.
And as far as the Hershey perspective to that, that's interesting. You could end up getting a new rival, but that's neither here nor there. This offseason could be interesting for the AHL as far as different perspectives.
And not only AHL, NHL too.
Right.
Carolina, now look, Carolina, they could share a team, but do they want to?
Well, some of that happened because it happened so late in the summer, they couldn't get those agreements in place.
If I was correct, they were sharing the checkers.
No, that was a weird one where people thought that would make sense, but apparently neither of those teams want the arrangement, which is weird.
I don't know why I thought that they shared a team with the checkers.
No. So Ponomarev has played with Chicago all season and was arguably their best player. So, and also keep in mind, Chicago enters today tied for the fewest points in the AHL with, I have 73 there, and that is not correct. They have 43. I don't know how I got 73 there, but anyways, they're tied with Iowa and Bridgeport. So Wilkes-Barre adds Ponomarev to their roster, which is a good top 6 center.
Yes.
And Carolina also made the decision to have Ty Smith remain in the AHL and remain with Wilkes-Barre after the trade. So that's a nice jolt for Grant Wilkes-Barre. So what are your thoughts on this? I know there's a lot of people that are like, how can you trade a player but still keep him? And, I'm indifferent on it. I think it's one of those, if you have that situation, it is what it is. That's got to be awkward for Smith.
Yeah.
Knowing you were traded but you still remain in that locker room?
Well, like you said, if Baltimore does get an NHL team, then that would be a huge deal. Like you said.
Well, that would be an AHL team, not NHL. Yeah.
But like I said, Carolina, I mean, with them, with all things that they've been going, nothing. That, like you said, I think if they do have an expansion team in the AHL, that would be really good for Carolina. But let's get back to what you said about Wilkes-Barre. Wilkes-Barre, with the change that they got to their roster.
Yep, they added a top 6 center.
And
kept their top point scorer.
Yeah, that's good for them, not offensively but defensively, in general.
Yeah, I mean that makes a big difference there in the Atlantic too.
Yeah,
you have to figure that they've lost their top point scorer twice this year. Rem Pitlick got traded to Chicago earlier in the year, and then Pittsburgh the other week traded Alex Nylander to Columbus.
Yeah.
So, and I know I follow a couple Wilkes-Barre beat reporters, and they're like, great, there goes another one of our guys. How are we ever going to try to keep pace? They're like, forget keeping pace with Hershey, but just trying to stay in the playoff race.
Focus on the roster. That's what you can do.
Right. And they're like, how are we ever going to keep pace in this playoff race? And then that happens.
Listen, if you don't make the playoffs, it's not a big deal. What you want to do in the offseason is focus on what can we do to make our roster more efficient.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's one of those that it makes a heck of a difference for them. So, keeping on with that, with some other important AHL movement, it came in the Anthony Duclair trade, which also happened overnight. Tampa Bay sent Jack Thompson, an AHL All-Star this year, with Syracuse over to San Jose in that trade. Whether he stays in the NHL or is back in the AHL is currently unknown, but Syracuse lost an all-star caliber defenseman, and he is in the Western Conference. So, waiver news. The Flyers acquired Ryan Johansson in a deal with Colorado earlier this week and put him through waivers and signed him to Lehigh Valley. He is also the brother of Hershey defenseman Lucas Johansson, so circle April 2nd if both are still in the AHL for a battle between brothers.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting. And continuing with Carolina, they put 3 players on waivers yesterday. Tony DeAngelo, Brendan Lemieux, and Antti Ranta.
The thing about Lehigh Valley, and I noticed this, their defense can play a really good game if they play defense, their defense right. I mean, that game against Hershey, I mean, their goalie had a good game that game. I mean, their goalie was on point. Everybody was in sync. And so for them to get that shootout loss, unfortunately, against us, we would like the Bears to win. But the Lehigh Valley has somewhat been a problem for the Bears this season. Not only defense, but offensive-wise. They can get to the net. They can score when they at the net. And that just makes it a whole lot difference.
Yeah.
I mean, Stevenson did what he could do, but like I said, tonight the Bears need to focus on getting that puck in the net, not rather passing, opening, shooting when the lane's open. Deflections can play a lot.
Yeah, I'm curious though. Going back to the Carolina waiver situation, where are they going to sign those guys? What team will they go to? I think I saw one of them. I think it was DeAngelo has played with the Wolves this year, but it's no guarantee that's where he goes.
If Washington really wants to, they could accept him on a waiver and send him to Hershey.
Well, no. If they call him through waivers, they have to stay in the NHL. That's what happens if you claim someone through waivers. My thought is they're trying to put them through waivers, have them go through it in that last hour, say, hey, here's some tempting guys that you can get. You can have them in the AHL. Who knows? It might be some trade bait for somebody, but I don't know. And this trade came through about less than a half hour ago. Columbus acquired Malcolm Subban from the St. Louis Blues, and Columbus.
Columbus? Oh, wow.
And they assigned him to Cleveland. So Springfield loses their goalie.
Yeah.
And now he's with the Cleveland Monsters. So that is a bit of a hit for Springfield.
Yeah, it is.
And now first place Cleveland gets a goalie that last year took Rochester to the conference finals.
Yeah.
That changes things quite a bit in the Eastern Conference in the North Division. Because Syracuse has been pushing Cleveland, and that helps Cleveland quite a bit.
It does. Yes, it does. Carolina, like you said, they have 2 players on waivers. We don't know where they're going to go. It's just a matter of time. Will Carolina make the right move, or will Carolina not? I mean, they're doing well. They're doing really well. Carolina's doing really well this season in the NHL. They're the standings they're at right now. They could easily be on a cup run.
Yeah.
And they're a young team. And, I mean, that just shows a lot. as a young team.
Yep, and just as a last reminder, any player on an NHL roster when the NHL trade deadline passes today is ruled ineligible to play in the AHL the rest of the 23-24 season and Calder Cup playoffs. So, that'll be interesting to see what happens. There's going to be a ton of paper transactions that'll go through right before that, but we're in for the ride.
Yes, we are.
It's exciting times. 12th Calder Cup last year for the Bears. Yep. Are they going for... Well, they're obviously going to try to gun for 13 this year.
They could easily be a two-peater.
Yeah.
Just the talent they have.
Yeah, we'll have to follow along. Yep. We're going to see how it shakes out right now. Right now, their point percentage is gunning for the AHL record if they continue at this pace. So we're going to have all that and more. Keep a lookout for a podcast every single Friday.
Yep.
We'll be dropping them there. So for Joe, I'm Andy. This has been Lacing the Skates, a Hershey Bears podcast. Thanks for joining us.